I'm Diego Sanchez, COO of HousingWire, and this is 10-Minute Talks. My guest today is James Dwiggins, CEO and founder of NextHome. James, welcome to 10-Minute Talks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's so great to have you on. Before we dive in, could you give a 30-second introduction of yourself and NextHome?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the real estate space for my entire life. I was born with the word escrow in my house. Grandfather started a company in 1967, I'm third generation. I co-founded a company called NextHome back in 2014. We started franchising in 2015. We have about 615 offices across the United States and just around 6,000 agents as well.
That seems like pretty dramatic growth for over the past decade or so. How are you growing, particularly right now when the real estate profession and the housing market in general are shrinking?
Yeah, so our market's a little bit different. We tend to attract teams and smaller independent offices that want to be part of something bigger but don't fit the traditional franchise model. So our niche is a little bit different than most. In down markets where business is down, you have to be more competitive. You have to control your costs. One of the things we do really well is we bring a lot of value to the table for the cost basis that we charge. We tend to just be different in that we have lots of very successful teams and small independents across the U.S. who want to be part of something bigger. And, in a market downturn like we've been through the past 2 years, our value proposition is pretty significant. So even though, the market's down, we're continuing to add offices, albeit not at the same rate we were when things were obviously, crazy busy, but we're certainly still growing as a company, and we're proud to continue to do what we're doing. So
let's dig in a little bit on that value proposition and your ideal customer profile. What kinds of agents, team leaders, and brokers is NextHome looking to recruit?
So I hate this word a lot. People start with culture. We have a philosophy here and a website that we host. We do something we call humans over houses. And it's a foundational piece of our culture in that we kind of have like a no jerk policy in our organization. We're looking for people that care about the community and really look at the profession as something that we do a very important role and have a very important role in housing in the United States. We attract people who are very focused on that. They care about what they do. It's not about sales numbers. It's not about commissions or compensation. It's about, really driving home ownership. And that's been a unique thing about us. So it tends to be, we attract people who have that similar philosophy. And that's allowed us to build this unique company and continue to, it's not, for us, it's not about agent count. It's about quality versus quantity. And candidly, our industry just focuses on the number of agents they have. And we're like, we don't care about that. It's much more about how many people we're serving. So in our model, it just attracts a certain type of individual to come to us.
Do you see, agents coming from big cities, mid-sized cities, or you don't really look at it that way?
We don't really have it that way. So we actually, one of the unique things about our company is we're in markets that most larger companies don't serve. And so we have agents in, major cities, but we also service rural America. So our footprint, ironically, for the agent count of our company, our franchise footprint is actually one of the largest in the United States. And we serve areas that a lot of people don't. And we're not trying to target a certain area. We're just targeting a certain individual, somebody who thinks like we do. And that's part of our growth strategy.
So a lot of talk in real estate circles about the commission lawsuits and some of the recent settlements. Would love to hear your thoughts. I know you do a lot of strategic thinking in this area.
Yeah. So, I've spent a lot of time on this. I'm probably one of the few people that have been ringing the bell going, this is a problem, where everyone else has put their head in the sand or doesn't even understand what's going on. None of these settlements are surprising to me. If you look at the balance sheets of these companies and what the plaintiff's looking for, there's only so much money. Plaintiffs don't sue to bankrupt companies. They sue to receive money. So all of these conversations about billions and billions of dollars is complete utter nonsense. It doesn't mean that there won't be damages. It doesn't mean that there potentially won't be, damages that could be severe for our industry, but settlement makes the most sense. Obviously started with Anywhere, Remax is next. They're giving up roughly 50% of their cash basis in order to settle these suits out. You're obviously, in my opinion, you'll see Keller and Berkshire do the same. And The biggest thing that needs to happen is NAR needs to settle these cases. They have no case to win this. I'm rooting for them. I'm not against them. I hope they win. But I also know that if they lose, the consequences would be more severe than if we settled these things out and made some of the changes that are happening. That's why the other defendants are doing so. If they settle the case, open the class so that all of the membership is part of the settlement, we remove the liability. Remember, these cases have a 5-year statute of limitations. So we settle these cases out. NAR will have to do some type of assessment across the membership to pay for it. My estimation, just with other lawyers I'm talking to, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm talking to other lawyers, is somewhere between $2 to $4 billion in damages paid out over 4 years. There's a dues assessment assessed to the industry, which would be pennies on the dollar if this was to go through trial, lose, damages, treble damages, basically times 3 because these are antitrust claims. It would be more severe. And as much as I want us to win these cases, I don't think we have a good shot at it. The other thing I'll tell you that is a very big concern that no one's talking about, I don't know why, is that plaintiffs are asking for an injunction on cooperation in the MLS. And not just to make it optional to offer cooperation, an injunction as in it's no longer a venue for cooperation any further. This is federal court. The trial that happens in October is federal court. That judge, he can, if he so chooses, decide to enact that injunction if we lose this trial across the entire US. It would take time for it to implement, but I'm actually less worried about the damages. I'm more looking at it like, how's the industry going to move forward if cooperation in the MLS no longer exists, which is a very high probability that occurs in October. And when Morrell goes to trial next year, I would say you have a 75% chance of that judge. She has indicated in all of her rulings and writings that she wants to see change as well. So there's big things happening, and it freaks me out how much the industry has no idea what these things could be for what we're dealing with. So
let's educate a little bit more here. How are you within the your NextHome business proactively responding to this situation?
Yeah, so I just had 415 of my franchise owners out last week for a meeting. We had a top lawyer talking about the likely outcome of these cases, kind of what I just alluded to. We are in the process right now of retraining our people to deal with this future. The future is going to look like this, just to be clear. You're going to see cooperation in the MLS cease to exist at some point, whether it's through these civil cases or the FTC comes in and rewrites the rules. That's a whole other talk we could do. You're going to see it end. Essentially, sellers are going to get paid by the seller's agent. Buyers are going to get paid by the buyer. Buyer's agent is going to get paid by the buyer, or they're going to write in the purchase contract that sellers to pay the buyer's agent directly, much like the Northwest MLS. So to be clear, this isn't like a sky's falling thing. We just have to retrain how we're going to ask for compensation in this process. We're going to need to institute buyer-broker agreements standard. 12 states require it currently. I think you'll see all 50 move to that. It establishes fiduciary. It's what the government wants anyway. That makes it so it's a clear playing field. We're teaching on that now, how to sit with a buyer and articulate our value, very clearly articulate our value, ask for an exclusive relationship with them through a buyer agency agreement. We've updated our buyer presentations to make it kind of like a listing presentation. This is what we do and what we're about. We're teaching the sellers, agents right now to talk to the seller of the importance of offering cooperation, because the buyer can't afford anything in this market. So we're doing a retraining of all of this in preparation for what I firmly believe will happen, whether it's now or in the very near future, that the FTC comes in and makes these changes across our industry. I think our whole industry needs to wake up and start preparing. And if it doesn't happen and Katie and the team at NER win, great. But if it not, we're ready and prepared for some of these changes, and no one's doing this, and it's scary.
I've heard some experts talk about potentially hourly compensation for a buyer's agent. How do you think the buyer's agent should be compensated?
So I don't think that's a reality. I think you might see some of that, but the IRS carve out that we have currently as an independent contractor, if you went hourly, it would violate that. So no one's really looked into this. So if you went hourly, you'd have to move your agents to a W-2 basis in order to do that. I also happen to have seen some inside information on another project I'm working on, which is again a deeper conversation. But when you track agents and what they're doing, hourly would cost the consumer more. Now that sounds weird, but if you actually look at all the time an agent spends writing contracts that aren't accepted, reviewing disclosures, inspections, all the stuff, hourly would cost more. I think the two models you'll see that'll pop up is still percentage as a primary method, because if you look at all the details, it actually is an inexpensive way for the consumer. I know it sounds weird, but I have access to data people haven't seen. I think you'll see flat fee services come to bear. You pay a certain fee to have the whole transaction, and a menu of services for some type of fee structure is the three models I see popping up in the future, but still percentage being the primary way that they're compensated.
James, I'm going to have you back on. This is a super interesting conversation. Maybe we'll have you at the gathering, our event in April of 2024. I'm sure there'll be more to come on this topic.
Be a lot by then. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
To have you on.
Appreciate it.